All right. So Lisa Higgins, we're gonna use 2 minutes each or 3 minutes each, ladies, and to tell your stories. You were all afflicted with COVID-19. We want to hear these unique stories. Go ahead, Lisa Higgins. Let's hear your story.
Hello, good night, everyone.
Good night.
I My experience with COVID was kind of sort of textbook. In mid-June of this year, I had traveled to the US just for a short stint, about 3 to 4 days. Came back, did my 14 days quarantine. I did not leave the house any at all. I worked from home in that time. So after the 14th day, I did the COVID test in order to return to the office. I did that test and it came back negative. On the 16th day, I started to feel fatigued. Mark you, I took the antigen, the rapid test, and it came back negative. So about the 15th, 16th day after returning, I was really feeling really tired and really not paying it any attention because I work, I have two small children, and it was like because I'm an accountant as well, so I had a lot of work to do. So there are times when I used to work right through the night when I'm working from home. So I didn't really pay it any mind. By the next week, I started to have a headache. The headache got really bad, and I realized that I could not function as I used to function because, being a mother, you would normally push through any tiredness that you're feeling. So I realized that I was in the bed and I could not get up out of the bed because I was feeling so weak. I felt that way with the headache, the pain behind the eyes, and the fatigue for about 3 days straight. I could not get up out of the bed. The only time I got up was to go and use the bathroom, and I was back in the bed. I could not function. Not, I hardly could eat. I just tried to ensure that I was drinking, enough water not to feel, any sort of dehydration. My voice had left me. I had no voice, and the pain. I also had pain in my throat. So when I swallowed or tried to talk, it was really, really painful. So by the end of that second week, I realized that I could not smell anything, and I have a 1.5-year-old, and if you should have an infant that small, then you know that their poo really smells bad. And I realized I could not smell that. When I got my dinner, I couldn't taste anything. So I said to my husband, this feels like a textbook COVID.
You're
Because
sure it wasn't Ricky's bad cooking?
I'm sure he's not bad. I'm going to put that out there. He's a very good cook. Right. But he was saying, no, but it's probably just the flu. And I'm like, no, I can't smell or taste anything. I've never lost my sense of smell. So this is by the weekend, and then by the Monday, I decided to do the COVID test again, the antigen test, and it came back positive. So by this time, most of the symptoms had passed. So the first 2 weeks was really of fatigue, and headache and pain behind the eyes and the sore throat. I did not get the fever, although there are times when I got really, really hot, but the sore throat stayed with me throughout the entire time. By the third week, I started to cough, and the cough caused my chest to feel like it was going to burst open. I didn't really have shortness of breath, but when I did cough, it was really, my chest felt really tight. Um, what I had to do in order, to just try to feel better, in the past, before I tested positive, I was taking my vitamins, my vitamin C and D, and all of that. But when it got down to the wire, I had to rely on zinc and on a concoction that my husband made with honey being soaked with garlic and lime, like for days. He had it like for a year being soaked. So that
Wow.
kind of helped. Yes.
Can imagine when you open that.
Yeah. Yeah, but it really, really helped, especially with the coughing and the sore throat.
Yeah, yeah,
There are days that I had to really go outside and try to take bouts of fresh air in order to just open up my lungs. And eventually I started to feel better. The fatigue, though, it stayed for a while. Even though sometimes I had the energy, there were times in the days that I just had to stop what I'm doing and go and lie down, or just realize that I fell asleep because the fatigue just took me over. Um, in terms of isolation, I I could not really isolate because I have, as I said, I have two very young children. So if I had to be around them, I made sure that I sanitize the place down and wear my mask and wash my hands like every 20 minutes before I should touch them or be around them.
Mhm.
So it was a stressful time for me because um, being a mother and a wife and still wanting to take care of your family and not being physically able to do so because you're not well, it took a toll for a while. But I had friends and family who always checked up on me and so forth. Even had people bring me food and so forth, just to ease the pressure of my husband and myself in taking care of our two young children.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that
Wow.
was really my experience. There
How,
there are
how
times. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead. I was
There,
asking, how do you think you contracted it? Have you done your, that mental contact tracing and saying, how did this happen?
yes, I have, and my conclusion is probably that I picked it up while overseas, considering the fact that I had quarantined for the 14 days after landing in Jamaica, and it was on the 16th day I started to feel the fatigue. So I guess by that time it had started to manifest itself. When I spoke to a nurse at my company, she said that it's a possibility that the test that I did after the quarantine, that test was probably too weak to pick up the virus at that time. So it was because it was after I tested negative, the virus started to manifest itself in the fatigue, even though
Yeah.
I was working through the night and all of that. But that is
Okay.
where the fatigue started.
Okay.
Right. So
We c-
just to finish off this,
yeah.
my experience now is that I experience brain fog at times, like the doctors call it long COVID symptoms. Um, yeah, so sometimes I experience brain fog for the simplest of things, can't remember somebody who's close to me, their name or something like that. And at times I have some wheezing. So when I went to the doctor, he gave me something called Breathe Easy to help me cope at nights when that comes on.
Okay. All right. And we pronounce that properly, Ricky. Breathe easy. All right. Leave that one alone. All right. So, Daniela Wadsworth. Thank you, Lisa. We'll get back. We'll probably ask some more questions. There's a slide from Doc. Doc Crombie or Ellis will explain about the test. That whole thing. 'Cause a lot of people might have taken the test, gotten a negative, and gone on to infect others. So we're gonna talk about the two types of tests, the antigen and the PCR. I believe, Doc. So Daniela Wadsworth, welcome. Finally to the Heart to Heart Talk show.
Happy to
Tell
be
us,
here.
we were to have you for another program, but fate would have it that you're here for this one. So tell us your story in a nutshell.
Okay, so for me, I contracted COVID a couple weeks ago. I thought that I was just feeling sick because I was at work and coming in contact with a lot of dust and things. So when my head started to hurt me, I thought I was overworked and just needed to rest. But the headache was strange. It wasn't the usual headache that I would have. Went to sleep, got up the next day to go to work, and I just felt very warm, very, very warm. So I checked my temperature because I live on dorm. So we have regular temperature checks and my temperature seemed fine. But then when I checked at another point in my body, get a different reading, check somewhere else, get a different reading. And so I went to work. So I thought, because I thought I was fatigued, just tired because of being overworked. And I went over for lunch and my friend said, no, man, you don't look all right. Go to the medical center. And so when I went to the medical center, she checked my temperature, seemed normal, but then she checked it again and got a different reading. And so then she used the underarm thermometer and she got an accurate reading of my temperature, which was way too high for, you know, a normal person. And so then I went into isolation and I did a COVID test. Turns out I had COVID-19. So then I panicked because I went home the previous weekend for the first time in the entire year. I went home, I cooked food for everybody.
Wow.
We cook up, we hug up. So I started to panic. And I think the whole mental health thing came into check because I started having panic attacks. So I said, Lord, me kill off my parents now, go home and give everybody COVID. Started to think about work. I went to church the previous day. So I started to panic. Did my checks though. The only person that contracted COVID from me was my sister. And she had it very mild. And I think I'm one of the lucky cases because I had chills, I had fever, had headache, loss of taste, joint pain. And I would say in comparison to a lot of people, mild respiratory issues, I had chest pain, coughs, everything, but I can say I had it good because all I had to do was stay home. Daddy give me all sorts of contraptions, whether it be something with lime or garlic or turmeric, sometimes everything mixed up together. I'm glad I lost taste, so I could have drink the teas without any question. So, you know, when you mix up everything, you know, if you ask what is in it, just drink it. And over time, getting rest, going outside, honestly, I think we were lucky and got over it. And here I am.
Yeah.
The aftermath. I still have joint pain, so I feel very old now. And I noted that my heart, my pulse rate was high before, and then my pulse rate was actually higher after doing a medical to ensure that I was cleared. So I'm guessing my body was under a lot of stress, but I am alive and well and giving God thanks.
My God.
Yeah.
How do you think you contracted it?
My boss. So her husband went to a funeral with a lot of foreign people. And over time, she found out that everybody there at the funeral had contracted COVID. So then he brought the COVID home and everybody at home contracted COVID. So she went on leave and I was not a permanent member of staff, so I floated around the office. So when she went on leave, I spent maybe the entire week in her office space. So I came in contact with everything that she would have touched. And I don't think the office space was clean or sanitized in a way. So, you know, I'm there thinking that I'm safe and nice and comfortable, eat lunch, touch stuff. So somewhere along the process there, I would have contracted the virus.
Wow. And I suspect your sister contracted it. She borrowed your stuff, not true? Borrow your hairbrush.
So she actually drank my water. So we're at church Sunday and we couldn't get water nowhere else, and she drank my water from my water bottle. So that's how she contracted from me.
But she's good now.
Yes, all she did was lose taste, and she was happy for the vacation. So she, you know, we bonded.
Yes. So we're just sharing, folks, the various spectrum that the word Dr. Crombie would use, of mild to moderate symptoms. I know folks are here who have had very severe death door experience. If you wish to talk, you can use a raise hand icon. I want to go back to a slide Dr. Crombie used, but let me hear from Cheyenne Taylor. All right, so Cheyenne, tell us your experience.
Greetings, everyone.
Greetings.
For my experience, it started in November 2020. Um, for me, I live alone, but it's a family yard. So the house where I'm in, I'm the only one there. It so happened that there are times when, I would stop by mom and talk with her, check up or anything. But for that entire week, I just came straight home. The Sunday night, which was November 8th, I was in bed and I don't know what happened. I just felt uncomfortable. I couldn't sleep at all. I twist, I turn, I couldn't sleep. By overtime, around 12 o'clock, my temperature went up. And I was there in and out of sleep, in and out of sleep. When I finally got some sleep, I woke up the Monday morning, which was a day for me to go to work. I woke up the Monday morning with a headache. Since this headache was not any normal headache at all. I mean, if I got up, I felt like I was going to topple over. It felt like someone was sitting on top of my head. And I was really, really hot and uncomfortable. I asked someone contacted me, and I asked them to do me a favor and to contact my workplace and let them know that I'm unable to come in because I couldn't really take up the phone, type, or do anything. I was just very uncomfortable. I was there throughout the whole day in bed, and I couldn't really eat anything. I didn't feel for anything at all. But knowing that I had a fever and I had a headache, I wanted to take some medication of the sort. I had to try and get something in my system. I was there and I told my mom, I contacted her and I told her what was happening. I told her not to come over because I wasn't sure what was really taking place. She said that, let's see if we can go to the doctor the next day. She had work, so I ended up having to go alone. The thing is, I didn't know what was going on. So the safest thing I did was to charter a private vehicle. I got a vehicle and I went up to the town square, and this is where discrimination came in. I went by a doctor, and before I came in, the nurse that was there, she asked me, various questions if I had shown any signs or any symptoms throughout the past days or hours. I told her what was wrong, and since she told me that I couldn't come in because the doctor was not going to see anyone that showed any signs or symptoms at all. So at that point, I'm in pain and I'm really hot and I really needed to see someone because I didn't know what was going on and I didn't want to stay home just like that. She said she apologized and she said that she really wanted to help me, but the doctor just would not see anyone at all. If it's for anything else, he would, but for anyone showing any symptoms, he wouldn't want to see them. Note that there are only four doctor offices in that area, and that was the only one that was available at the time. I said, all right, let me go and check down by another office. I went there, they were closed early, but the gentleman that was there, he said that I could check back tomorrow. Since knowing that I'm having a fever, I'm uncomfortable, at that point in time, I really needed some help of the sort because I couldn't manage to go back home with this head pain. But I toughed it out and I said that I don't know where the strength came from at that point in time, because knowing that I'm feeling this way and not knowing what's really going on at this time in a pandemic, I just really had to trust God at that point. I went home and next day I went to the doctor's office and I explained to them what was happening and they put me in one section. So persons that came in, they were only in another part, but I was the only one in a certain section. Got in, they checked me and everything, went to the doctor, and she said that I was still warm. And she noticed that there was an infection in my throat. Based on the symptoms I told her that I had, she said that she would suggest that I go and do a COVID test, but call first. So the vehicle that I came with, I chartered again, and they brought me back home. I called the hotline, and the first person that I got through, she seemed not interested at all to help me. And this is a hotline where persons are there to help you, ask you the questions, get you through so that someone can come and check on you. She didn't seem interested at all. It seemed as if I was bothering her. Somehow the line dropped and I had to call again. And I got through to someone that was more understanding. And she asked me various questions. She asked me if I was alone. She asked me how I felt throughout the whole time. And they said that someone will reach out to me in the next 24 hours. I was there waiting and everything. And believe you me, no one called. And the thing is that my doctor said that I could not leave the house at all. She gave me a week to see what was happening and so forth. And she gave me medication, but she told me not to leave the house at all. I was there waiting on the call. No one came through. I tried again and I called so many times until my credit finished. I called and I called and I called the line, couldn't get through to anyone. So I just ended up having to stay home for that week. A doctor checked in on me and I took the medication and I just watched the symptoms. During that whole week, there are friends who had reached out to me. I told my pastor what was happening, and knowing that I couldn't leave the house at all, I couldn't get tested. So I was just there. And believe you me, that throughout that week, different things happened. There was a case where I couldn't lay down on my back. It felt like someone was sitting on my chest. The headache went, but the fever was still there. I still felt warm. I couldn't lay down on my back. Felt like someone was sitting. There are times when I felt like I was forgetting things. I felt unstable, like I was just there. Felt uneasy. And throughout the time, still on the medication and everything, I started getting a little bit better. So I'm like, all right, I feel like I can, maybe return to work. The next Monday morning, I woke up, and during that time, I'm sanitizing the place and everything, and I can smell everything. That Monday morning, I sprayed and I smelled nothing at all. At that time, I started to panic because I'm like, all right, cannot smell anything. I went into the kitchen and I tasted something and no taste at all. I contacted the doctor, told her what was happening, told her that no one came to come and test me. And knowing that I cannot leave the house at all means that I didn't get tested. I didn't get tested, but I was showing the signs and I was having the symptoms. But at that time, it was only the doctor that stayed in touch with me. During that period of time, it's like there was at one point I broke down because I didn't know if I had any underlying issues. My mom, she came by only at the grave. She didn't come inside. She gave me groceries and everything, and I'm her only child, and I could see that she was, worried and concerned that no one came to test me. I was just there in the house alone, just doing my home remedies, treating myself as best as I could. But through it all, I just continued to pray and I just continued to trust the Lord that He would take me through this. So by the time I spent at home was for 21 days, I stayed indoors for 21 days. And the symptoms, it left and everything. Before I could return to work, my HR told me that I needed to take a test to return so that they could get the results before I came back. I reached out to the hotline again and I explained to them, detailed the whole situation, and they apologized and they sent me over to the heads for the Kingston and St. Andrew area. They asked me if I was home for the whole period. I told them yes. They said that I did not need to be tested. I could just only get a letter from the doctor that checked in on me. I went back to her. She checked me up. All the symptoms and everything were gone. I was fine to her, and I returned to work. So that was my experience during that time. The discrimination, knowing that I was in need of their help and a doctor wouldn't want to see me. I didn't know what to do. I had to go back home in pain without any medication or anything at all. But through it all, I just know that persons were praying for me and that God was with me during that period of time.
Yes, yes, yes. So how do you believe you contracted it?
For me, it was work related. What
Okay.
happened is that I found out during the time when I was home, when my manager had contacted me and was talking with me and told me what had happened, was that someone who sits directly next to me, they hardly wear the mask. For me, no, I wore my mask. I sanitized, I did everything as possible because for me, my immune system, I tend to get flus and colds easily. So I tried my best to protect myself at that time. And it so happened that person didn't really wear their mask all the time. And what happened is that a relative of theirs was tested positive, and they informed the heads they had to go home, but they showed no signs. I was the only one that was showing the signs.
But that's strange because if you were always wearing your mask, you're always sanitizing, even though they don't always wear their masks, how would you have the transmission? Any other doctors may want to comment on that?
But
Actually have a slide just for that, so I can put it back in the presentation. I will cover it before we go.
Okay. Okay. Cheyenne, you were offering something while Doc loads this time? You were offering an opinion, Cheyenne?
oh, it's because, as I had mentioned, is that the person hardly wore their mask. So they were always talking up to me, even though persons would say that, yes, you wear your mask and you keep your distance and everything. Based on the type of work that I do, I was unable to keep a distance at that time. So I just kept the mask on, thought that, I will be fine and everything, but
So
they didn't.
you believe it penetrated your mask? Or there was a time that you
Something I
maybe
touched
have pulled it down?
somehow, because their desk is directly next to mine. So we share things like if I lend a pen or something of the sort.
Okay, okay. So it could have
Yeah.
entered another way. I'm sure Doc will explain the science of that. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.